What happens when a fiercely independent woman, who only came to Seoul to build a better life for her sister, is dragged into the ruthless world of the city's most feared mob boss? She wanted nothing but peace. He lived for power and control. Their worlds were never meant to collide, until one night of blood and violence bound them together forever. Forced into a marriage that was never meant to be love, Zara must fight not only to protect her sister but to survive in a world of betrayal, shadows, and danger. All while standing toe-to-toe with a man who should have been her enemy, but might just become her only salvation. This is not just a love story. It's a story of fire and survival, of trust forged in darkness, and a bond strong enough to defy death itself. And don't just listen to this story. Experience it. Stay with us until the very end, because every second pulls you deeper into a world where love is as dangerous as it is irresistible. Backhand index pointing right, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss the next heart-pounding story. Zara stepped off the plane into the humid, buzzing air of Seoul, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and nerves. The city stretched endlessly around her, a sprawling maze of skyscrapers, neon lights, and the steady hum of life that never seemed to pause. She clutched her small duffel bag tightly, glancing at the older sister beside her, Maya, who bounced on the balls of her feet, her eyes wide with awe. "Wow, it's so big," Maya whispered, her voice barely audible above the roar of the airport announcements. Zara smiled, a tight but reassuring smile. "I know, Maya, but we'll figure it out. I promise." She adjusted her bag on her shoulder and felt the familiar weight of responsibility settle over her. Being in a new country was frightening enough, but she had made a promise to herself long ago. No matter what, Maya would be safe. Their first days in Seoul were a whirlwind. Zara had secured a position at a prominent hospital in the city, a place renowned for its trauma unit. She threw herself into her work, her mind focused, her hands steady. She had a way with patience, a quiet confidence that put even the most terrified ones at ease. Her colleagues noticed it too, the way she moved with precision, never faltering even in the most intense emergencies. One rainy afternoon, the ER doors burst open with a force that rattled the ceiling tiles. Zara looked up from her chart, instantly alert. A group of men carried in a bleeding young man, his body limp, his clothes torn and soaked in dark crimson. "Gang violence," the paramedic panted, glancing nervously at Zara. "He was attacked in the alley near Jongmyo." Zara's eyes sharpened. "We don't have time to waste," she said firmly. Her hands flew to work, stripping bloodied clothing and starting the fore. She barked instructions at the other nurses, her voice calm but commanding. "Keep his airway clear. Monitor vitals. We can't lose him." As she worked, Zara's mind was a machine of focus and precision, yet her heart clenched at the sight of so much suffering. She had seen violence before, but the fear in this young man's eyes, the way his body trembled despite unconsciousness, ignited something protective in her. She refused to let him become another statistic. Somewhere outside the ER, a man in a tailored suit watched through the frosted glass. His posture rigid, his expression unreadable. Known in whispers across the city as a man who commanded fear and respect in equal measure. His presence alone could quiet a room full of hardened men. Yet here he stood, hidden in the shadows, observing Zara's every move with an intensity that was unsettlingly personal. He was fascinated, not by the young man on the gurney, but by the nurse who refused to look away, who met the chaos with controlled precision. There was something about the way she moved, her hands steady, her voice unwavering, that drew him in. Her courage wasn't loud or brash. It was quiet, unyielding, and entirely unexpected. By the time the young man's bleeding had been stabilized and he was moved to surgery, Zara's clothes were damp with sweat and blood, her hair sticking to her forehead. She leaned against the counter, taking a moment to breathe, her chest heaving. Maya, who had been allowed to visit during her shifts, stood behind her, worry etched across her youthful face. "Zara, he's okay, right?" Maya asked softly, her small hand brushing Zara's shoulder. "He's going to be okay," she said, though a sliver of doubt still nagged at the edge of her mind. She forced a smile. "See, told you. Everything will be okay." Maya nodded, but Zara could see the questions in her sister's eyes. She knew Maya was thinking not only about the young man, but about them, their new life, the dangers lurking in a city they barely knew. Zara had promised to keep her safe, but in a city like Seoul, promises were easier to make than to keep. That evening, as Zara returned home to their modest apartment, the weight of the day pressed on her. She cooked dinner mechanically, listening as Maya chattered about school, about the new friends she hoped to make. Yet Zara's mind was elsewhere, drifting back to the ER, to the sharp fear she had seen in the young man's eyes, and to the dark-suited observer who had watched her every move. She didn't know it yet, but that moment had changed everything. Hae-jin had made a mental note of her, not just as a nurse who saved his man, but as a woman with courage, intelligence, and an unwavering moral compass. He was intrigued by her refusal to be intimidated, by her strength in a world so often ruled by fear. Days later, Zara found herself crossing paths with the consequences of that observation. A rival gang, seeking to undermine Hae-jin's power, had begun shadowing her movements, learning her routines, probing for weaknesses. Zara noticed small things: a van parked too long across the street, a shadow flickering behind a storefront, but she brushed it off. The city was big, chaotic, and she had enough on her plate keeping Maya safe. Until the day Maya didn't come home. Zara's panic was immediate, sharp, and suffocating. She ran through the streets of Seoul, her heels clicking against wet pavement, her voice trembling as she called out for her sister. Then a message appeared on her phone, a video. Maya, tied to a chair, terrified, pleading silently. A masked figure appeared in the background, the voice distorted. "If you want to see your sister alive, you will do exactly as we say." Zara's hand shook, but her mind raced. She wouldn't, let anything happen to Maya. Her chest burned with a mix of fear and determination. This wasn't just a city anymore. It was a battlefield, and her sister was the prize. And somewhere, in a high-rise overlooking the same streets, Hae-jin watched. He knew the moment had come, the moment Zara stepped fully into his world, unknowingly, dangerously. He didn't move, didn't intervene yet, but a small, calculating smirk crossed his face. She was clever, resourceful, brave, and utterly vulnerable. The collision of their worlds was no longer subtle, had begun. And Zara, for all her skill and courage, had no idea just how deep she was about to fall. Cliffhanger ending. Zara's life had shifted in an instant. The threats lurking in the city were no longer abstract. They were personal. And while she believed she was only fighting to protect Maya, Hae-jin's fascination with her had turned a dangerous observation into a personal interest, one that would soon pull her into a world she was unprepared for. Zara sat in the quiet of her apartment, the phone trembling in her hand. The video of Maya, bound and terrified, replayed endlessly in her mind. Her chest felt as though it had been squeezed in a vice, each heartbeat echoing the same terrifying thought: if anything happens to her, it's my fault. Seoul had always been a city that seemed to hum with energy, but now it felt suffocating, oppressive, every shadow a potential threat. Zara paced the small living room, glancing at the locks on the door and the barred windows she had installed days ago. It was a fortress, but she knew it wasn't enough. Whoever had taken Maya knew her patterns, her routines, knew exactly how to strike. The masked figure's voice in the video haunted her. "If you want your sister alive, you will comply. No tricks. No delays." Zara's fingers tightened around her phone. She knew the rules of this dangerous game. One wrong move and Maya could be gone forever. And yet she refused to panic. Fear could not rule her. Not now, not when her sister's life hung in the balance. That night, a black car arrived at her apartment building. It was sleek, unmarked, almost silent against the rain-slicked streets. Zara didn't hesitate. She stepped outside, heart hammering, and found herself face-to-face with Hae-jin. He was the same man she had glimpsed in the ER days ago, dressed impeccably, every line of his face controlled, every movement deliberate. But tonight, there was something sharper in his gaze, a promise of danger lurking just beneath the calm. "You're Zara," he said quietly, as though stating a fact rather than asking a question. His voice was low, measured, yet it carried an authority that made her instinctively stand taller. "I am," Zara replied, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. "And you are?" "Hey Jean," he said, eyes locking onto hers. "I know what they did to your sister. And I know what you're capable of." Zara's brow furrowed. "I don't know what you mean." He smiled faintly, almost amused. "Don't play coy. You know exactly what I mean. You have a choice. Fight them on your own and risk everything, or work with me, and guarantee your sister's safety." The weight of his words hit her like a blow. She had known that stepping into this world would be dangerous, but the reality was far more immediate, far more personal than she had imagined. To protect Maya, to keep her alive. She had to do something she had never considered. "And what does working with you mean?" Zara asked, her voice shaking slightly despite her attempt at calm. Jean's expression hardened. "Marriage." Zara froze. The word hung in the air like a guillotine. "Marriage?" she repeated, disbelieving. "Yes," he said. "A legal bond. A union. You protect your sister and I protect you. You stay safe and I gain something I want. Someone capable, intelligent, unyielding. Someone like you." Her mind spun. She had never imagined a man like Jean, dangerous, untouchable, commanding fear across Seoul, would propose something like this. And yet, beneath the fear, a logical voice whispered, "If you refuse, Maya dies. If you agree, she lives." Her gaze fell on Maya's photograph pinned to the wall. The little girl's smile, so full of innocence and trust, burned in her mind. The decision crystallized instantly, painfully. She could not lose her sister. Not now. Not ever. "I'll do it," Zara said finally, her voice low but resolute. "But understand this, I'm not agreeing because I love you. I'm agreeing to save my sister." Jean's eyes glimmered with a mix of respect and intrigue. "I don't expect love," he said. "I expect cooperation." The ceremony itself was swift and quiet, nothing like a wedding Zara had imagined in her dreams. No flowers, no applause, just a signing of papers and a silent acknowledgement that her life had irrevocably changed. She was no longer just a nurse, a sister, or an outsider in Seoul. She was now part of a world built on fear, power, and unspoken rules. Jean's world. The first nights in his penthouse were disorienting. The apartment was luxurious, immaculate, but Zara felt like a stranger in every corner. Security cameras blinked faintly. Men in dark suits moved silently through the hallways, and Jean's presence was constant, a shadow she could never escape. Yet it wasn't just fear that rattled her. It was the way Jean looked at her, a mix of calculation and curiosity that sent shivers down her spine. Every word he spoke seemed to test her, every glance challenged her. It didn't take long for Zara to see the depth of his world. Late at night, she overheard conversations she was never meant to hear. Plans for smuggling, threats whispered over encrypted lines, men discussing strategies that involved power, money, and sometimes blood. She realized with a shock how intertwined Jean's empire was with danger. A single misstep could cost her life, or worse, Maya's. And yet, even in the midst of fear, Zara felt an undeniable pull. Jean was not cruel without reason. He was calculating, yes, and dangerous, yes, but he also protected those who mattered to him. She had seen him personally intervene to prevent harm from coming to innocents caught in his crossfire. There was a code beneath the brutality, a set of principles that she began to understand, even if she didn't trust them fully. The first real test came sooner than she expected. A rival gang, emboldened and desperate, attempted to ambush them at a downtown cafe. Zara had been cautious, but she had underestimated their reach. Shots rang out, screams erupted, and glass shattered around her. Jean moved like a shadow, shielding her without hesitation. His movements precise, lethal, and terrifyingly elegant. Zara's heart raced, but she found herself reacting instinctively, ducking, signaling, and even helping others escape. Adrenaline surged through her, not fear, purpose. She was no longer just surviving, she was part of this dangerous dance. And Jean's gaze caught hers mid-chaos, a flicker of something unspoken passing between them. Acknowledgement, respect. Perhaps the first stirrings of something more complicated than either had expected. When the gunfire ended, Zara's hands shook, and her clothes were torn, her uniform bloodied from cuts and panic. Yes, she was alive. Maya remained safe. And for the first time, she felt the unnerving thrill of knowing that, in this world of shadows and threats, she had a part to play, and that Hei-jin's influence was far greater than she could have imagined. Sitting in the penthouse afterward, cleaning scratches and trying to calm her racing heart, Zara realized something chilling yet undeniable. She had stepped fully into Hei-jin's world. Every decision, every movement, now carried consequences she had never anticipated. She could no longer see the city as just a backdrop to her new life. It was a chessboard, and she was a piece. A piece whose actions could determine life, death, or something far more complex. And Hei-jin, he was not just her protector. He was her partner in this dangerous alliance, a man whose personality clashed violently with hers, whose control grated against her independence, and whose very presence ignited a fire she could neither ignore nor fully trust. The marriage was supposed to be strategic, but in the shadows of power, danger, and blood, Zara realized that strategy alone might not be enough. And she couldn't yet know how deep her entanglement with Hei-jin would go, nor how the sparks between them would ignite into something neither of them could contain. Zara now understood the full extent of Hei-jin's reach and the danger surrounding her and Maya. She had entered a world where every ally could be a threat, every shadow could hide a weapon, and every choice carried immense weight. And as she looked at Hei-jin, standing silently across the room, she felt the undeniable pull of tension, challenge, and something dangerously magnetic, something she wasn't sure she wanted to resist. The city of Seoul had grown darker to Zara. Not literally. The neon lights still glittered against the night sky, but the shadows now felt heavier, thicker, as if the air itself carried the weight of danger. Every street corner seemed to whisper threats. Every passing stranger's glance seemed loaded with unknown intentions. She had stepped into Hei-jin's world fully, and now she was beginning to feel the full force of it. The penthouse, which had once seemed like a fortress, now felt like a gilded cage. Zara had tried to maintain her independence, carving small routines and boundaries, refusing to let Hei-jin's world dictate her completely. But the reality was harsh. Every decision she made carried consequences, and the people around her were shadows of loyalty and betrayal, unpredictable and dangerous. Hei-jin's presence was a constant pressure. He moved through the apartment like a predator, calm and calculated, and Zara could feel his eyes on her at all times. Every glance carried judgment, every word an unspoken challenge. They argued often, their clashes explosive and raw, yet beneath the friction was an unspoken current. Magnetism, tension, a dangerous curiosity neither could deny. "You can't just barge into my meetings like this," Hei-jin said sharply one night. His dark eyes fixed on her as she returned from the hospital, exhausted but determined. "This isn't your world, Zara. You're risking too much." "And what if I don't?" Zara shot back, her voice trembling with frustration, though she kept her composure. "What if I refuse to be treated like a pawn in your empire? My sister isn't a bargaining chip. And I'm not some tool you can manipulate to protect her." Hei-jin's jaw tightened, his gaze hardening. "You think I don't know that," he said, his voice low, almost dangerous. "You've got fire, I'll give you that. But fire without control gets people killed. You need to learn how this world works before it burns you alive." Zara's chest heaved. "I don't need to learn from you. I need to protect my sister. I don't care about your world, Hei-jin. Care about her. And I won't let you or anyone make her a pawn." The argument ended there, unspoken tension lingering in the air. Yet, despite their clashes, Zara began to notice things she hadn't before. Hei-jin's precision, the subtle way he protected the people around him, even those who might otherwise be expendable. It was ruthless, but not heartless. And slowly, she began to see the layers beneath the hard exterior, the man who carried burdens, choices, and secrets she could only guess at. The next escalation came sooner than Zara expected. A rival gang, determined to undermine Hei-jin, struck again, this time targeting the hospital. One night, as Zara worked the night shift, masked men stormed the building, their intentions clear: terrorize, wound, and send a message. Panic erupted. Patients screamed. Nurses scrambled. But Zara didn't freeze. She ducked behind a counter, heart pounding, and quickly assessed the situation. "Stay calm," she shouted, her voice slicing through chaos. "Get the patients to the back." Move now. Her command drew attention from the intruders, and she realized too late that she had become a direct threat to them. The first shot rang out. Glass shattered. The smell of gunpowder burned in her nose. She felt a hand grab her arm and pull her down behind a heavy cabinet. Heijin emerged from the shadows, moving with terrifying grace. He disarmed one of the men with a swift strike, his hand a blur. Another lunged at Zara. She barely dodged, her adrenaline making her movements sharp and instinctive. Stay down, Heijin barked, his voice low but commanding. And yet, despite his brutality toward the attackers, he moved to shield her with his body, instinctively keeping her safe. When the chaos subsided, Zara was shaking, her uniform torn and stained. She looked up at Heijin, and for a brief moment, the anger and defiance melted into something raw. Relief, gratitude, and a flicker of admiration she didn't want to admit. "You're reckless," he said quietly, his voice softer now, almost concerned. "You could have been killed. And you think I care about that?" She shot back, though her voice lacked the same fire. "I care that my sister is safe. I don't need you telling me how to survive." Their words were sharp, but the tension between them shifted slightly. Zara realized she was beginning to understand him. Not fully, not entirely, but the man beneath the ruthless exterior was calculating, yes, but not devoid of conscience. And Heijin, for his part, began to respect her strength and intellect, recognizing that she was not merely a fragile pawn, but a partner capable of thinking, acting, and surviving in his dangerous world. But trust was still fragile. Within Heijin's organization, whispers of betrayal surfaced. Loyal men were tempted by rival gangs with money, promises, and fear. Zara noticed subtle signs, misplaced messages, unexplained absences, eyes that lingered too long. She was learning to read the undercurrents of this hidden world, to see danger before it struck. Yet every revelation carried risk. Every step further into Heijin's empire made her life, and her sister's, more precarious. One evening, as they strategized for another move against a rival gang, Zara dared to confront Heijin directly. "Why involve me in all this? Why risk my life?" she demanded, frustration boiling. "I'm not one of your men. I'm a nurse. I save lives, I don't take them." Heijin's eyes darkened, his jaw tight. "You think I want you here?" he asked, his voice dangerously low. "I don't. But you are already here. You are part of this now. And whether you like it or not, I need someone I can trust to see the world clearly, not blinded by fear or anger. You're not a soldier, Zara. But you are clever, calculating. And that makes you useful." Zara bristled at the word, but a flicker of understanding passed through her mind. He wasn't praising her exactly. He was acknowledging her strength, her ability to adapt, to survive. And she realized that, despite their constant clashes, they were beginning to understand each other in a way neither had anticipated. Days later, the situation escalated further. A member of Heijin's inner circle betrayed him, leaking information to the rival gang. Ambushes, sabotage, and near-fatal attacks followed in rapid succession. Zara and Heijin were forced to rely on each other completely, coordinating plans, watching each other's backs, and sharing strategies in whispered conversations that carried the weight of life and death. And in those moments, when danger was at its peak, when survival required cooperation, something unspoken shifted between them. Arguments softened into debates, harsh words into cautious laughter, moments of silence into brief, fleeting glances filled with unacknowledged longing. The friction that had defined their relationship began to crack, revealing something more complicated. Respect, trust, and perhaps the very beginnings of desire. Yet even as the tension between them grew, the stakes became clearer. This world was unforgiving. Any misstep could destroy them, and betrayal was always closer than it seemed. And Zara understood now more than ever that Heijin was not just a dangerous man. He was a force of nature, a shadow over the city, and someone she was inexorably drawn to, even if she refused to admit it. One night, during a carefully planned move against the rival gang, Zara and Heijin found themselves trapped in an abandoned warehouse, the enemy closing in from all sides. For the first time, there was no escape without depending fully on each other. As gunfire echoed around them and the walls trembled, Zara's hands found Hei-jin's in an instinctive grip, and she realized, survival demanded trust. In that heart-stopping moment, both of them saw the fragile barriers between them crumble, exposing vulnerability, dependence, and a tension neither could ignore. Their fates, their emotions, and their lives were now intertwined in a way that was inescapable. The fire of the city, the shadows of betrayal, and the storm of danger had brought them together. But what would happen when survival was no longer the only thing at stake? The warehouse stank of gunpowder and blood. The crackle of gunfire had faded into a tense silence, broken only by Zara's ragged breaths and the low hum of the city outside. She crouched behind a rusted beam, her hand still clasped tightly in Hei-jin's. For a moment, it wasn't the bullets or the rival gang that terrified her. It was the realization of how natural it felt to hold him, to lean on him, to trust him with her life. When the last of the attackers fled, leaving bodies sprawled across the concrete, Hei-jin rose slowly, his chest heaving. His shirt was torn, blood streaking across his arm, but his dark eyes never left Zara. "You shouldn't have been here," he said, voice hoarse, almost breaking. "I had to be," Zara whispered, her throat tight. "I couldn't just sit back and do nothing while you fought alone. Not anymore." That admission hit harder than any gunshot. They had been enemies, reluctant partners, reluctant spouses bound by necessity. But in that moment, with the danger receding and the air still charged with adrenaline, they were something more. Two people who had been burned by fire, yet found a strange comfort in each other's presence. The following days blurred into tension and uncertainty. Hei-jin's organization was fractured, shaken by betrayal. Trust was a rare commodity, and Zara found herself caught in the delicate balance of loyalty and suspicion. Every room she entered felt colder, every gaze heavier. Yet Hei-jin began to include her in discussions, listening to her observations, weighing her opinions. "You see things differently," he told her one night as they sat across from each other in the dimly lit penthouse. "You notice what my men overlook. That makes you valuable." Zara folded her arms, refusing to let the small warmth in her chest show. "Valuable," she repeated, her tone sharp. "That's what I am to you. Just another tool." Hei-jin leaned forward, his eyes locking with hers. "No, you're more than that. You've forced me to see this world differently. You've forced me to feel things I've buried for years." The words lingered between them like a fragile secret. Zara looked away, her heart pounding, because admitting what she felt meant acknowledging the dangerous pull between them. The rival gang struck again, this time bolder. They cornered Maya on her way home from university, forcing Zara into a nightmare she had long feared. By the time Zara arrived, Maya was terrified but unharmed, because Hei-jin had anticipated the move. His men intercepted the attackers, driving them off before they could do real damage. When Zara saw Maya safe in their home, trembling but alive, she broke down. Her knees gave way, and she wept into her sister's hair, whispering promises of safety. Later, when Maya slept, Zara confronted Hei-jin, fury and gratitude twisting inside her. "You knew they'd come for her," Zara said, tears streaking her face. "And you stopped them." "I couldn't let them touch her," Hei-jin replied quietly. "Not because of what it would do to me, but because of what it would do to you." Her chest ached. For so long, she had painted him as nothing more than a monster, a man whose life was built on violence. But here he was confessing without grand gestures, without charm, that her pain mattered to him, that she mattered to him. Zara's voice trembled. "Why me, Hei-jin? Out of all the people in this city, why me?" He hesitated, then stepped closer, his expression unguarded. "Because you're not afraid of me. 'Cause you fight me. Because you look at me and see more than the monster everyone else whispers about. And because when I'm with you, I'm reminded of who I might have been, if I hadn't chosen this life." The truth in his words broke something inside her, broke the barrier she had clung to for safety. She realized she wasn't just surviving alongside him anymore. She was choosing to. The final showdown came swiftly. Word spread of a traitor in Hei-jin's ranks, feeding critical information to the rival gang. Zara was the one who uncovered the truth. A man close to Hei-jin, someone he had trusted since his rise to power. She pieced it together through small details. Misplaced files, phone calls at odd hours, whispered conversations that didn't add up. When she brought the evidence to He-jin, his face was unreadable, but his eyes burned with betrayal. "You did what none of my men could," he told her, voice low and reverent. "You saved me." Together they set a trap. The confrontation was brutal. Gunfire in the dead of night, betrayal laid bare, the city's shadows lit by muzzle flashes. Zara stayed close to He-jin, her fear sharpened into resolve. When one of the traitor's men lunged at her, she fought back, adrenaline surging, proving once again that she was no passive pawn. By dawn, the rival gang had been crushed, the traitor dealt with, and He-jin's empire, though scarred, stood firm. But it wasn't the victory that mattered. It was the way Zara and He-jin stood side by side, bloodied, exhausted, yet unbroken. Later, in the quiet after the storm, He-jin found Zara on the balcony of their penthouse. The city stretched before them, endless lights flickering against the night. She looked weary, but her spirit burned as brightly as ever. "You should hate me," He-jin said softly, stepping beside her. "I dragged you into this world. I forced you into this marriage. I've given you every reason to despise me." Zara turned, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I should," she whispered. "But I don't." The silence between them was charged, every unspoken word heavy in the air. Then, slowly, He-jin reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. "When this began, it was a pact," Zara said, her voice breaking. "A way to protect Maya. But somewhere along the way it became more than that. You're not just the man who forced me into this life. You're the man who stood beside me in every storm. You're the man who, against all odds, I trust." He-jin's breath shuddered. For years, he had ruled with fear, never letting anyone close enough to wound him. But Zara had torn through his armor, piece by piece, until all that was left was the man he had long hidden. "I don't deserve you," he murmured. "Maybe not," Zara said softly, her hand tightening around his. "But love isn't about deserving. It's about choosing. And I choose you." The kiss was inevitable. It wasn't rushed or desperate. It was steady, sure, born of everything they had endured together. Fire and shadows, betrayal and trust, fear and longing. All of it fused into that moment. It wasn't just passion. It was respect, intimacy, and a profound bond forged in adversity. When they finally pulled away, the city hummed around them, but for once Zara felt safe. Not because danger had vanished, but because